Hi, I'm Marlon. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to be using this channel to analyze and review albums, both new and old. And I'm going to use this first episode to analyze the narrative structure of Tyler the Creator's new album, IGOR. Alright, so IGOR serves as Tyler's sixth studio album. A lot of people refer to Bastard as a mixtape, but he refers to it as an album, so I'm going to refer to it as an album as well. And I feel IGOR serves as Tyler's maturation as a songwriter and a producer. He boldly shows his influences all over the album, especially his Pharrell and Kanye influences. There's a lot of funk and jazz and neo-soul samples and aesthetics to the album, and they all clearly serve, they're not just thrown in arbitrarily, they serve a purpose to the album's narrative and its sonic consistency as well. So before I get into the album's narrative, just as a precursor, I want to state that I feel Tyler's he's no stranger to having albums with clear and coherent concepts. Bastard and Goblin were framed as these like extensive therapy sessions with the fictional Dr. TC. Then you had Wolf, which followed this like complex narrative around three characters at a summer camp. And then you had Flower Boy, which was like this metaphorical car journey through the recesses of Tyler's mind, and he explored themes of materialism, sexuality, love, and growth. Out of all of his albums, Cherry Bomb's the one that doesn't really have a clear narrative to it, but that's because Tyler said that the intention behind Cherry Bomb was just to create a collection of songs. He just wanted to make songs for fun. He's always had a knack for creating albums with the intention of them being listened to as full albums, full projects from start to finish, which is, especially now in hip hop, you don't really see much of. You've got people like Kendrick who do it all the time. A lot of it is just you pick and choose your favorite songs, and then you shuffle them and play them at random. But I think especially with IGOR, I think plucking a song completely out of context is kind of doing a disservice to the song. A lot of the songs have even greater meaning behind them when you listen to them in the context of the album. But one aspect I want to touch on briefly is Tyler's use of features. The amount of features on the album are quite extensive, but when you first hear it, you wouldn't necessarily think so. They're kind of like hidden and like buried in the mixes. None of the features are credited, so you have to look into the liner notes of the album to find who's specifically on which song. I don't feel this is some arbitrary decision made by Tyler. I think it's a clear intent to not distract from the narrative of the album, which is the complete focus. There's appearances from Solange, you've got Charlie Wilson, you've got Lil Uzi Vert, you've got Playboy Carti, just to name a few. You've got Pharrell and Kanye, obviously. Some of the features are more obvious than others. You've got Carti's verse on Earthquake, which no one can forget, even though we're not quite sure what he's actually saying yet. One of the most interesting uses of features is his singing verse on the first track, Eagle's Theme, where when I first heard it, it sounded like either it was a woman or a man singing in falsetto. And then when I came to learn that it was Uzi, I thought, is he singing really well, or has it been pitch shifted? What I gathered from that is the features aren't the selling point of the album. So it's not DJ Khaled featuring a million rappers. The selling point isn't the feature. The selling point is the narrative and the songs themselves. And I think that's why Tyler's made this decision not to credit the features explicitly. Just the last point on the features, I think this is where the influence of Frank Ocean's Blonde comes into play, because again, the features weren't credited and they weren't obvious on first listen. For example, on Pink and White, you had Beyonce, who's probably one of the biggest pop stars on the planet, and she came in to do backup vocals and sang a couple of words, and that was it. She only served to enhance the feeling of the song and the album. In terms of the narrative structure of IGOR, it's not necessarily the most complex concept album to follow, and I think it doesn't need to be, because the album is a breakup album in its rawest and purest form, and it's fueled by raw emotion and love and hurt and heartbreak. And I think having this intricately weaved narrative and complex story with loads of characters wouldn't serve that purpose very well. I think that's why Tyler's chosen to go down this route. But what I do want to discuss is how Tyler's raw emotions manifest themselves in different ways all over the album. After quite a lot of listens of the album, I found myself dissecting it into what I feel are 4 sections. So I feel the first section is infatuation, then it moves into desperation, then you've got realization, and then the final one is naive optimism. I will explain all of these when I come to them. Previously mentioned, the first song, Igor's theme, I feel is like it's a prelude to the themes of the album. It's mostly instrumental. You've got Uzi singing "Run around town, you gonna feel this." It's every bit of the song feels like it's like a little preview to each section of the album. After Igor's theme, Earthquake and I Think are the clearest examples of Tyler's deep infatuation with this unnamed lover. On Earthquake, Tyler says, "I don't want no confrontation, you don't want my conversation." He's desperately seeking to receive the love that he's willing to give, but it's not being reciprocated and it's breaking his heart. Which in the next line, he says, "Running around town, your love is shaking me up and it's making my heart break." So I've interpreted this in 2 different ways. The first way is that the unnamed lover that Tyler's pursuing, that love he's getting back is not a pure form of love. It's not the ideal form of love that Tyler wants, and that's why it's breaking his heart. The second is relating to the love triangle narrative that exists in this album. The love that's breaking his heart isn't the unpure love that he's receiving, but it's the love that the person he's in love with is giving to this third person in the narrative. So he's being fueled by jealousy, and that's what's breaking his heart. Fundamentally, this song is a song about heartbreak. He's infatuated with this person, and for some reason he can't be with this person. And I think understanding the song in this way is crucial to understanding the next song, which is I Think. On the surface, the beat is really danceable. Like the synths are crazy. It's got this like groove to it that you can't help but dance to. But under the surface, I think is lying something that's slightly darker. The hook simply goes, "I think I'm falling in love. This time I think it's for real." Which, upon first listening, it's euphoric. He's like, "I'm so in love, like I want to express it." I feel that this is Tyler in a state of denial, in a way. Earthquake has shown us that this love isn't the ideal love that Tyler wants, and he's aware of it, but he's giving into it anyway. He's fooling himself into believing that this is a true form of love. "I think I'm falling in love. This time I think it's for real." He's fooling himself. He's tricking himself into believing that this love is true love, because he's so infatuated with this person. It's just taking him over. The line where he says, "This time I think it's for real," is extremely important to the narrative of the album, because it implies that this isn't something that's happening for the first time. "This time I think it's for real" implies that he's gone through the cycle of a doomed relationship, and he's once again returned to the point where he's in this vicious cycle and he cannot get out of it. The next song, Running Out of Time, serves as the bridge between the theme of infatuation and the theme of desperation in the album. On Running Out of Time, he feels it's like his last chance to finally get this person to get to love him back. There's this whole string of lines with this aquatic imagery, which is quite beautiful, and it serves as like a metaphor for him falling deeply in love with this person, desperately in love, if you will, and being willing to accept this desperation that he's in. Like Tyler said, he's found peace in drowning, so he's aware that he's way in too deep and it's not healthy, but he's accepted it. He tries to coax in his lover by saying, "Take your mask off, I know the real yous, stop lying to these N words." He also says, "I need her out the picture," which is the first indication that he's part of this love triangle. Obviously, this is the most explicit indication on the album that his lover, or his prospective lover, is a man. And the mask that he wants this person to take off is this facade of heterosexuality that he's putting on. But the next song is New Magic Wand, and I feel this is where Tyler's desperation manifests in its darkest form on the album. This song is full of jealousy and envy. He says, "My eyes are green, I eat my vegetables." He's literally raging with envy. So the titular New Magic Wand, it's like the physical embodiment of Tyler's wish for this love rival to be gone in an instant. And when he says, "Now pick a side, and if you don't, I'll pick you both," that is, for me, one of the darkest moments on the album. It's a play on the saying, "If I can't have you, nobody can." His envy is so strong that he fantasizes about his love interest and his love interest's girlfriend being physically dead. So for all of Tyler's previous songs about cannibals and rape and Dracula and all this stuff, I still feel this is one of his darkest passages and lyrics in his entire discography. It's because these desperate and intrusive thoughts about love hit so much closer to home for many people than these outlandish stories about Dracula eating someone, for example. A Boy Is a Gun is probably the most Kanye song Kanye's never made, helped by the fact that it shares a common sample with Bound 2. This signals the beginning of Tyler starting to realize that he's in this toxic relationship, and there's hints that he's trying to get out of this relationship, but he's still trying to excuse some of this behavior, some of this toxic behavior by this love. The one lyric that sticks out to me is, "Boy, you sweet as sugar, diabetic to the first degree." I think this one line encapsulates the entire internal conflict that Tyler's having on this album. He knows and he's aware of what's bad for him, but he can't help returning to it. He says his lover is a gun, so mother effing dangerous, but simultaneously Tyler's craving the so-called protection that this gun, this boy, provides for him, and this security that he's craving. At the same time, Tyler is the one in the firing line of this gun, of this boy, of this toxic relationship. If this gun is gonna hurt anyone, it's gonna be Tyler. So by the time we reach Puppet, we start to see more of a self-awareness about the nature of this relationship. Whilst on the verses, he seems to describe this idyllic, dreamlike relationship that he wants with this person. The hook acknowledges the one-sided nature of the relationship. He says, "I'm your puppet, you control me." And this means that Tyler's completely at the mercy of this person and willing to do almost anything for this person just to gain their affection. It's not just heartbreaking that Tyler's at the mercy of this person. I think it's more heartbreaking that he's aware of his subservience because he's so desperately in love and he doesn't care about it. At the very end of the song, we hear Jared Carmichael say, "But at some point you come to your senses." This is the signpost for Tyler's finally realizing that he's in this toxic relationship. As well, this serves as the birth of the IGOR character in the album's narrative. What's Good has, I think, some of Tyler's most braggadocious lyrics. He says it's hard to believe in God when there ain't no mirrors around, which is, again, something you'd imagine Kanye rapping. The first mention we get of the IGOR character is when the cops say my name, I'm IGOR. So after realizing he's been at the mercy of this unhealthy relationship, he breaks free and suddenly he's extremely confident. But I think he's perhaps too confident. It feels like he's overcompensating. But I think here, IGOR, specifically in this song, it represents Tyler's release from this shackle of this horrible relationship. So no longer is this IGOR character merely an assistant to his Frankenstein or his Dracula. He mentions Dracula on his song, Dracula, Dracula, Dracula. Gone Gone / Thank You perhaps has one of the most uplifting and euphoric moments on the album. He says, "Whether it's rain or shine, I know that I'm fine for now. My love's gone, my love's gone, my love's gone." And this is Tyler living in the moment. He's aware that this happiness that he feels isn't going to last forever. Breaking free from this tumultuous relationship is so overwhelming in the short term that he has to express it. Tyler, he's saying he's living his best life, so to speak. His love's gone, he's happy, he's living in the moment, he's carefree at this point in the album. The second half of this track, Thank You, seems to sum up the emotions that he's going through. He says, "Thank you for the love, thank you for the joy, but I don't ever want to be in love again." He's happy to have loved and lost, but this relationship has broken him down to the point that he feels maybe he's not in a position to give love, or maybe he doesn't deserve to feel loved either. He feels that going through this, he is not strong enough to endure this once again. The fact that the album doesn't just end at this point is really important to understanding the overall narrative of the album. If the album did end here, it would still be a pretty powerful, bittersweet moment to end it on, but it doesn't. And I think the final two tracks are what really sets this album apart from just being a simple, sad breakup album. I feel these are the two most essential tracks when you come to listening to this album more than once. These two final tracks are where I see the inevitable naivety of the characters shining through. And I don't use naivety as an insult. In this instance, I acknowledge it as a natural facet of human nature when dealing with extreme emotions, especially with love. I Don't Love You Anymore, upon first listen, is Tyler's moment where he's finally over this person, he can let this person go. But personally, I don't interpret it this way. But for me, it's quite obvious that this is not a song about Tyler being 100% over this person. In the first bar, he says, "Heavy feelings for you, it's no secret." And the second verse is quite obviously him questioning his ability to move on from this lover. He says, "Moving on how my feelings are stuck in the lost and found. I'm stuck forever and ever and ever and ever." For me, it's so clear and obvious that Tyler is not over this person in the slightest, but then the verse is juxtaposed with the chorus, because the chorus, you hear this childlike screech of, I don't love you anymore. Again, this is an example of him overcompensating and trying to portray to the world that I'm over this person, I don't care, I'm living my best life, so to speak. But he's clearly not over this person. This is the seeds being sown of him not being over this person, and that's why this directly follows into the last song on the album. So on We Still Friends, Tyler, he sings, I've been back there, I've got to know, are we still friends? Can we be friends? After putting on this facade that he's over this person, we see his true emotion coming through again. He wants any contact he can possibly have with this person, even if it's just a platonic relationship. But you have to question, at this point in the song, I question, why would you want to be friends with someone who isn't treating you how you feel you deserve to be treated, and you feel you've gone through this toxic whirlwind relationship of different emotions? There's only one conclusion that you can draw from this, is that he is still in love with this person. He cannot get over this person for all his best efforts. He can't get over this person. So the very last lines of the album read, I can't say goodbye, can't say goodbye. Throughout the entire album, it is hinted that this isn't the first time Tyler's gone through this experience. At the end of the album comes full circle, and how I've been envisioning it is, if I had this album on a continuous loop forever, the album's narrative would still make sense. So you start with his infatuation, then you move to his desperation, you move to his realization, or a false realization, and then his naive optimism. Can we be friends? Like, please, like, I would still want to be in your life. And I think that false sense of hope that he's been given by this person to still be friends is what feeds back into his eventual infatuation with this person again and again and again. He's stuck in this vicious cycle of a toxic relationship. It's the most human thing to have your judgment clouded by these overwhelming emotions of love and infatuation and jealousy and envy. And I think we can all relate to that. I don't think I've ever heard an album, specifically a concept album, deal with this aspect of love so sensitively and so accurate to real life. With IGOR, I don't feel like this is an overstatement. I feel he has genuinely transcended genre. You could be into pop, you could be into indie rock, you could be into hip hop, you could be into all these themes that he's rapping about or singing about are universal. I feel with this album, he has made something that's completely unique. Obviously, like I said, he wears his influences on his sleeves, and he's unashamed about his influences. And he's still able to draw from all these different genres and make something completely new, and make quite a unique concept album as well. Because concept albums where it's a clear structure, like I feel Wolf is his most complex narrative to follow, because you kind of have a love triangle again. You have this Sam character, this Wolf character, and the Salem character. It's quite intricately weaved together, but it's not as fueled by the raw emotion that IGOR is. I think with this album, it definitely has to be heard in its entirety on multiple occasions. And I think the last thing I have to say about this album is his idea has well and truly been executed.